Joining me now is Virginia Kase Solomon, president of the watchdog group Common Cause. Virginia, let's start with Wisconsin. The liberal judge running for the Supreme Court seat actually recused herself from the Musk case when it was assigned to her, something I'm not sure every conservative judge would have done. Can you talk about what's wrong with how Musk has tried to insert himself into this race?
Well, thanks for having me, Rev. It is just beyond egregious. The same exact person who inserted himself into the presidential election is now trying to insert himself into statewide elections. And to make it even worse, there's a voting executive order this week that came out and was signed by President Trump that would allow Elon Musk and Doge to have access to state voting records so that they could, quote unquote, suss out voter fraud. So this is just one of the worst power grabs I've ever seen, both at the state level and at the federal level when it comes to this administration. It's just absolutely egregious.
Now, this isn't the first time Musk has tried to use his money to sway an election. He tried similar tactics in battleground states during last year's presidential election. Do you think his actions waking people up to the dangers of big money in politics? Do you think it'll have that effect?
Well, I would hope so. I think one of the things that we're seeing across this country, there's international protests today of Tesla. People are upset. They see this billionaire who's coming in and essentially trying to buy our government, buy our votes to better himself and his corporations. And so I think people are waking up, and quite frankly, they're angry.
Earlier this week, President Trump signed an executive order at reshaping U.S. elections, including a push to require proof of citizenship for registration. How many voters could be disenfranchised by this? And doesn't it also violate the Constitution's election clause?
So millions and millions of voters would be impacted by this. And not just with the citizenship piece, where women like myself, 69 million women in this country would be impacted because we're married and we would have to show an original birth certificate or a passport to be able to demonstrate that we were actually citizens of this country. And so it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, Democrat, it would impact every woman in this country if you are a married woman, and then millions and millions of other voters. But it's wholly unlawful. It is wholly unconstitutional. Our Constitution gives power to Congress and to the states to decide election law, not the President of the United States. And so this is one of the biggest presidential power grabs I think I've seen in my lifetime. Not only would it disenfranchise millions of voters, it would end the receipt of ballots after Election Day. And one of the things that's scary is if you are a service member, if you are somebody who lives overseas and is doing service to our country, your mail might be held up for a day or two, or might not get there on time. Guess who's controlling the post office? Well, guess what? They would disqualify your ballot with this executive order. And then in addition to that, it would give Doge, Elon Musk, and the opportunity to subpoena voter records at the state level, our private voting data, so they could, quote unquote, suss out potential voter fraud. So this goes far beyond anything imaginable.
Let's get back to Elon Musk for a moment. Trump's executive order also includes language that could allow Doge to go through the voter rolls looking for alleged fraud, something Trump tried unsuccessfully to do in his first term. What are the problems with this in your view?
Well, a few different things. First of all, the President of the United States is intentionally not named in the Constitution when it comes to our elections. And the reason is because the framers of our Constitution did not want a king. They didn't want an authoritarian. They didn't want somebody who could serve themselves to potentially stay in power, for example. And they shouldn't be having their thumb on the scale when it comes to elections. But furthermore, it is a state's issue. When it comes to states, they set election law in their states. Congress sets election law at the federal level. And so the fact that the president is trying to allow Elon Musk, who is already interfering with elections, I would argue that he interfered with our elections by the use of his platform X by manipulating algorithms, for example, this last election. So having somebody like Elon Musk and his team at Doge, who know nothing about how elections are run, come in, is just one of the biggest concerns that I think anybody in this country should have. And not just for now, Rev, but think about it later on. The president coming behind him could hold this. If you were a Republican, would you want a Democratic president being able to look at your voting record and subpoena your information? So this is something that would be bad for people in the states and every single voter in this country, regardless of who was president.
Now, we saw President Trump withdraw his nomination of Congresswoman Stefanik and other moves. Do you think he's concerned about the midterm elections, losing the House, losing a lot of seats or some seats in the Senate, and that he's messing with the voting abilities and the voter capacity of people or qualifications of people because he's concerned about the midterms?
I think he is, and I think he should be. People are upset. And that's the one thing my organization hears from our constituents and from voters across the country every single day. Rev, we get thousands and thousands of emails from folks saying they are furious about what they're seeing coming out of this White House, because instead of doing things to improve the economy, the only thing that they are doing is showing the amount of dysfunction and their inability to govern.
Virginia Kase Solomon, thank you